Welcome to Pixelated Geek presents TriPod. We are a live weekly video podcast featuring JJ Crass. I got it right this time. Taylor Tate and me, James Huneycutt. Today is April the 21st, and we'll be broadcasting live on Twitch TV/PixelatedGeek. You'll also be able to find this video after the fact on the YouTube, the Pixelated Geek YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/PixelatedGeek. And the iTunes recording will go live in about 24 hours here, so say Wednesday midday. If you'd like to comment or respond to any of our content, we can be reached via any of the above locations, as well as at social at PixelatedGeek.com. So, again, today is April the 21st, and we're going to be talking about Star Wars today. So we're going to start off talking about Star Wars The Force Awakens, the trailer. So, I mean, we talked about this the other day during a special sort of edition of TriPod, but Star Wars The Force Awakens looks awesome, and I know based on conversations that we've had recently and before that, we all agree on that. So, kind of what I wanted to get into initially was that there's some kind of concern surrounding J.J. Abrams. There was initially because of the Star Trek films. So I know that Taylor, I know you enjoyed the Star Trek films a lot. I certainly did. But J.J., you said that at some point previously to this conversation that you sort of understood the concerns about the Star Trek film. Could you clarify that a little bit further?
Yeah, I know some fans were a little irked that it went from, exploring space to a little more action-packed. Granted, you could always say maybe due to budget reasons they couldn't do that with the original show, but I could tell there's a different vibe with the crew from the Abrams and the original Gene Roddenberry, but I think that's fine to change it up a little bit.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think my reaction to that, I've heard that criticism as well, is that if you watch the original series, there is some exploration, but there is a whole lot of Kirk, the double-handed punch, and
right.
Phasers and such like. So I don't know. I mean, ultimately I think that they did about as good a job as they realistically could. But I do understand. I mean, both of the films have been very conflict oriented, and neither one of them have been about exploration, which apparently Simon Pegg will be fixing with his new script. So that said, it looks.
But I still like them.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That said, it looks like Star Wars is not off track at all. And I know that obviously we've all been burned by trailers before. The Phantom Menace trailer was pretty awesome. And then it turns out that pretty much the entirety of the movie that was decent was in the trailer sequence. So, that said, I don't really actually know what to say about Force Awakens that we haven't said other than, can you get it here sooner? Can we have it? I would like to have it. Please, now.
Please let us have it.
Please let us have it.
What was it the other day? We were saying that this actually might be the better trilogy just because of the tone and vibe of it and what they're going for.
I mean, I certainly would argue that it will be a better made film if only for the advantages of 40 years of advancement in film
technology. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's pretty easy to argue that George Lucas is a really cool mind. He's like a really creative guy, but he's not what I would argue as my favorite filmmaker. And as a matter of fact, most of his best work was his creative work handed over to someone else. Everybody agrees Lawrence Kasdan did a phenomenal job with the Empire script. That film was not directed by Lucas. Lucas directed A New Hope. I believe Richard Marquand directed the second and the third. I might be off on that, but I know he directed one of the two of them. Lucas was the creative guy, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when you get a filmmaker that's very visual and very image oriented, playing around in his universe. Yeah, I mean, I think that it will be a better made trilogy. I'm not sure I'll it's gonna be really hard for me to like it as much as the original trilogy, but we'll see. We'll see.
And I don't think we'll see any of like the lens flare stuff that was very prevalent in Star Trek, because I don't think that that was a look that fit Star Trek. That never really existed or would fit in Star Wars. So people make jokes about that. Yeah, sure, you can crack wise, but I don't think we'll see any justification behind that concern.
Right.
Every time a saber pops, just a lens flare.
Yeah, and see, here's the thing about lens flare. There are places where it fits, and like it fits really well in shiny science fiction. That's almost where it lives and where it should belong, and like Star Trek is really shiny science fiction. It was pretty clear from the opening remarks that he made at the major press conference at Star Wars Celebration 2015. I mean, A, they're going for practical effects, and B, he stated repeatedly that one of the things he loved about Star Wars was that it was gritty, and it was real, and it felt lived in, and it felt realistic, and it felt like a real world, and they were going for that. And so, as a consequence, not shiny sci-fi, and I think, especially given some of the criticism they got for Star Trek, I doubt we will see a lens flare in this film, and if we do, it'll be one, and it'll be hidden. But I wonder the degree to which, if that one hidden one will just be like, boom, this is the biggest lens flare that we can possibly do, and we're going to do it once because you're a dick and you expected it. But that's it. All right, cool. I'm done.
And it'll probably make sense the one time he does it as a giant middle finger. I'll be like, okay, all right, I guess.
R2 in the desert, just from.
Yeah. I fully expect it to be like a thing where they like.
It's going to be a shiny ass stormtrooper. It's going to be a shiny ass stormtrooper because he is literally all chrome.
Right. See, well, I think.
And you're not going to complain because it's him being a badass.
No, it's not. No. See, I think we're going to see like two suns, and it's going to pan past the like shiny stormtrooper, and it'll be lens flare, and then it'll cut into the sun, and that'll be it. And you'll be like, that would happen. I would, yeah, okay. My eyes would get lens flare if you did that. So yeah, speaking of their sort of like new aesthetic, not new, but like the authentic, gritty, real aesthetic. At Star Wars Celebration, they announced Star Wars Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Yeah, so Star Wars Rogue One, directed by Gareth Edwards, who we know from Godzilla, and not much else, but Godzilla did a pretty good job of stamping him with the okay. This is a film that incidentally will be shot by the director of photography from Zero Dark 30, that takes place in between Episode 3 and 4, and is intended to fit along the vein of war films like Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down. It's intended to be a very gritty film, a very dark film. The director has promised that one of the things that he finds very interesting about this particular narrative is that it is not black and white. It is very gray. You have good guys on both sides, and bad guys on both sides. And it's specifically a war heist film along the lines of, say, Where Eagles Dare, or The Eagle Has Landed, World War II, like, sort of like gritty behind enemy lines, spy thriller stuff. It's a heist film, a war heist film, about stealing the plans for the first Death Star. That sounds awesome. Does
it matter? Does it matter to any of us that we know how it's going to end?
No. I mean, it doesn't matter.
I mean, you still went to go see 300.
Yeah.
See, I don't think it does for me, because I'm gonna use a couple of examples, and I'm gonna use Titanic first because it's a punchline. But the boat's gonna sink. People still watch the movie. But I think a better example in this case is a film like Valkyrie. Have you guys seen Valkyrie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know that's a movie about a German plot to assassinate Hitler. We know how Hitler died. Was the film still?
It wasn't that way.
Yeah, No, it wasn't. It wasn't assassination. So I think if the film is in the hands of the right script writer, then no, I don't think it matters at all, because I think, the journey is the worthier part, I think, is the argument for that. Additionally, we know way more about how the plans for the second Death Star were stolen than we do for the first. That's not something that's ever been identified before. And I think the thing I'm most excited about is the director said he was questionable about the script because he was not really into the idea of making a space opera. He wanted, he was very attracted to this specific script because it was completely normal people facing off against astronomical odds. So we don't get Jedi. We get rebel soldiers. So we actually haven't, as a group, talked about this. Hey Taylor, what are your opinions on this?
Well, I'm all for a new perspective into the Star Wars universe. I don't think anyone's going to be upset about that, because the more the merrier with this kind of stuff. I think that the chops of the people handling the film are solid and legitimate.
Ooh, I'm going to pause you 1 second, because this will make you even happier. So the guy who's doing the creature effects is the guy that handled all of the creature effects in Prometheus.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Me gusta.
Yeah, so Aliens gonna look good. Yeah, okay, continue.
So we know the people who are handling it are they kind of know their stuff. They've done it before, and they've done good things with it before. I think the perspective is an interesting one. I don't think we're going to see Ocean's 11 meet Star Wars, which is important. Oh, come on, you hadn't thought that was going to be a possibility at some point?
Well,
that could totally be.
When they said heist film, I said boo. But when he specifically referenced films like The Eagle Has Landed and Where Eagles Dare, I was like, that's the kind. Yeah, I'm down for a Dirty Dozen Star Wars film. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. So kind of you said when you were down for a Dirty Dozen Star Wars film, I think it'll be really good. I'll certainly see it. I don't think that that they need to or will try to have a kind of scale, obviously, that the Star Wars movies would. So they can really focus a lot on individual characters, so you can get a lot of development, a lot of proper setting building, and so proper time and care taken to important elements of the story that's going to make you care about the characters and what they're doing.
Yeah, I am on board with what you were on board for. JJ, what are your thoughts on this?
I actually kind of want to see this one first before Episode 7. I'm really excited for both, but just the idea of a Jedi-free, grittier Star Wars film really excites me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
the thing that really appeals to me is obviously everybody's first introduction to Star Wars was Star Wars, but in the intervening years in between Star Wars and the prequel films, there was a lot of expanded universe stuff that was handled. A lot of people, when they talk about the expanded universe, they're talking about the Grand Admiral Thrawn books or the Kevin J. Anderson books. My first introduction was the West End Games D6 tabletop role-playing game, which was one of the very first things that I ever encountered in the world of tabletop, which that may be what I fell in love with. Before I had D&D, second AD&D books, before third came out, the West End Games books were out, and I was in a used bookstore, and I saw something that said the Rebel Alliance source book, and I was like, I don't know what a source book is, but it says Rebel Alliance, let me holler at that. So I did, and I was flipping through it, and I was like, what are these fucking... Okay, so these are stats for a ship. Why do I need stats? What would I do with stats? And there were all these things I didn't understand. Now keep in mind, I was 12. This was little nerd James. So I'm flipping through, but it's got all this awesome backstory. It's explaining the birth of the rebellion and where they came from and how these different smuggler groups and pirate groups and then disenfranchised senators came together to birth the rebellion. I was like, the story is awesome. And over time, the more I flipped through it, I was like, oh, this is a game. Oh shit, I can play Star Wars games that aren't on my computer? So that for me, that was my entrance into Star Wars is more than a film. And it was about this time. It was about these like gritty rebels who were like maybe not good guys, like smugglers and scoundrels and like slavers, but like they don't like the Empire, so they band together, and like nobody's really a good guy except for these like couple of people who are, and they have to tolerate the people that aren't. That was the beginning of my introduction into the universe as a bigger world. And it makes me really happy that the first Star Wars anthology film is that. And then also the fact that it's called Rogue One, which makes me think, we gonna get to see Rogue Squadron. I want to see Rogue Squadron. That's very important to me. But yeah, cool. So, speaking of Rogue Squadron, fly X-Wings. Y'all know what happened this last week, right? I know you do, because we talked about it.
I have no idea about anything that's going on. It's not like it's my phone backgrounds and lock screens and other stuff.
So the Star Wars Battlefront trailer was, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. I thought the trailer itself was disappointing. But I only thought it was disappointing because I thought, I know, you're rolling your eyes, it's okay. Because I thought we were going to get gameplay, and I thought I was going to see that. I thought I was going to see what gameplay looked like, and what we saw was in-engine rendered footage, which is almost the same thing. Almost. We can be a little concerned that it might be a little bit doctored, it might be a little higher res than it should be, but that's why we have PCs, because chances are, if an engine can look like that, we can make it look like that. So I want to, because we haven't talked about this as a group, I know how I feel. Taylor, talk to me about the Battlefront trailer.
So, I was not expecting gameplay. And when I saw that it was this like pre-rendered trailer, I was like, "Oh, that's perfectly fine." Because really, if we had seen gameplay anyway, it would have been like orchestrated, controlled.
Right.
It might as well have been, a pre-done trailer, because we weren't going to see, a lot of people just kind of doing whatever. We weren't going to see, real players getting their hands on it. It was just going to be like, here's this team of people running through a script and events that we've pre-written and we know it's going to happen. So I wasn't upset about that. I think that anything we would have lost by it not being gameplay, we might have picked up and had extra of in terms of content and how long it was. Maybe if it had been gameplay, they wouldn't have shown as much, because not everything is ready. I kind of queried that perhaps they didn't do gameplay because like HUD elements aren't finished, particularly for vehicles. Equipment stuff might not be finished, and maybe if they want to show us something, they really want to make sure it's really good, because when I mentioned this earlier in the week, just briefly, James had a very accurate comment, and it was like, this is the first thing done with like Disney on the line with him as well. So they have additional pressure not to fuck this up.
Right.
So they might be taking more time in doing anything about it and showing like real content, so that they make sure what they do show is solid and it's well received and people like it. I think there could have been plenty of reasons why we didn't see actual gameplay, and I'm perfectly fine with it. And I'm still like foaming at the mouth about waiting for this game. And we mentioned just before this stream went live, between Halo 5 and Battlefront 3. Battlefront? I'm just calling it Battlefront.
Yeah, right.
They're just calling it Battlefront.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw so much money at Battlefront, and maybe I'll buy the standard copy of Halo 5. I mean, maybe I'll just get a digital one. I'm not signing up for. I'm not like begging for collector's editions already, like I am for Battlefront.
Yeah, absolutely. JJ, what were your takeaways from the Battlefront trailer?
For me, I was a little let down not seeing actual gameplay, but E3 is just around the corner, and the Star Wars Celebration is not only for, its big market is not gamers, it's Star Wars. And, gaming might fall into that, but E3 is really just for gaming, so they're going to hold off on that to get that crowd psyched. Because, some Star Wars fans at that place might not play video games, so they're not really going to get that much of attention from it. A lot of people are freaking out about the stuff that's been revealed. I'm actually happy EA is being very upfront about what's in the game, what's not, with different things. To me, certain things make more sense that way. Like, it makes it's taking the problem with Battlefield and Battlefront. Sometimes it is too big, which you think is impossible, but it can get boring. You're running around for 5-10 minutes, you don't find anybody.
And they go thin on some things to make sure you can make it super, super big.
Right. So the idea to me of making these like little condensed, chaotic moments works.
And let me go ahead and clarify this just on the off chance that the audience isn't familiar. So what we're talking about first is size. The Battlefield, so DICE Interactive makes the Battlefield games, and they also make the Battlefront games. The Battlefield games have habitually been 32 versus 32 on PC, and recently they expanded Battlefield 4 to be 32 versus 32 on console, on next-gen console. So
yeah, we should specify that.
We should. So Battlefront has been confirmed as 40-player online, 20 versus 20. So that's the first comment about size. JJ, continue with your point. I just wanted to clarify that for the audience.
Yeah. And another thing is, I don't see it as Battlefront 3. This is EA does Battlefront. So it is going to be similar in some ways, but it's their own beast, and I'm willing to accept that. My hopes of getting Battlefront 3 by, was it Pandemic Studios, has died with that leaked footage after it was canceled. Yeah. So I'm getting a DICE-made Battlefront. And it's separate, but I'm okay with that.
And I've got to be honest with you, I'm happier about that, because I was one of the idiots that owned a PSP. And there were some Battlefronts on PSP, which were, I think, the last two that were made. And, for a PSP game, it was fine. But, I went back and I played Battlefront 2 the other day, and, yes, that game's great. Yes, it is. But there were some choices even then that I didn't love. And now I know we are all PC-centric. And I know that all three of us in particular have a fondness and affinity, and I would possibly go so far as to say love of the Battlefield games. So I know this is Star Wars, it's made by DICE. I know that we are the corest of target demographics. But I still think that this is a match made in heaven, and I think that we do need to keep in mind exactly what you're saying. This is a Battlefront game made by a different company, and we need to respect that. So, speaking of DICE making a Battlefront game, and then choices that we need to respect, this is a thing that's come up lately. We're going to do two things, and we're going to do them in order, but I'm going to mention them both right now. So first of all, they have confirmed that the Walker Assault mode will involve AT-ATs that are on rails. So, let me flip this for a second. JJ, I want you to respond to that first. What are your thoughts to the AT-ATs being on rails?
Part of me is wondering if it's a graphical limitation / hardware performance, because these are going to be working on the consoles, which, yes, these consoles are slightly better from what they used to, or previous generations, but hearing what the game is supposed to look like, and hearing the fact that, foliage bends when you move across it, having a fully functional AT-AT, it just seems impossible when you think about it from a, hardware limitations.
Okay. All right.
But it's also, to me, it makes more sense. I think they're not porting Battlefield to Star Wars universe, and I think that on-rail shooter, you have that, and then you have the strikes from the Y-bomber. I think it's giving players some amount of control, but not total control, and that's to keep it in these little crazy little pockets of destruction.
So what you're arguing is that it's probably a gameplay choice by the developer in order to keep the Battlefield manageable, interesting, and contained.
Yes, okay. So it's not some guy jumping in one and wandering off the map with it.
Sure, I like that. Okay, so actually that raises a good point. I'm going to kick it over to Taylor because I'm pretty sure I know what he's going to say. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the AT-ATs being on rails?
Thank God. Yeah, okay, you're not going to have this expert maneuvering of an AT-AT that's going to single-handedly win the battle. But let's face it, unless you have a group of people you're playing this with and you're all hardcore, that's not going to happen anyway. You're going to get some asshole who and I play on U.S. servers. So this comment is okay-ish. You don't have someone in the AT-AT going BR question mark typing effing gibberish that no one on the team can understand, and he's like running the AT-AT into a mountain over and over again. It's like, I'm sorry, I thought this game was made for simple people to understand, but yet you have proven that humanity is a giant disappointment often. And I'm the one of the three of us who's the most optimistic about teamwork and does things in games with the theory that people are going to be smart. And I'm the one who's saying this. This is how bad it's gotten.
It's true. No, you're totally right. You're totally right. It's true. See, what I anticipate would happen if they put players in charge of the AT-ATs is much like 2142 with the asshole in charge of the Titan who just like parks it out in the middle of fucking nowhere where it can't do any good for anyone. Like, you're gonna have an idiot running it, like you said, into a mountain, or driving it around in a circle, or just totally wasting it. Because it's a Battlefield game, and I guarantee you there will be regular respawns for fairness. It won't be awarded to the players with the highest score. That'll go to the hero characters. AT-AT will just be something that spawns at the top of the map. And if you get a fucking idiot in it who decides to run it off in the middle of nowhere and do nothing, then he's torpedoed. I guarantee they're going to be like 2 or 3 of these on each map. That's it. If you get an idiot, your entire team is lost because he's making a poor tactical decision. They're going to put this on rails, and they're going to put it on rails because it's going to be some sort of pressure-based mechanic in the game. As the AT-ATs close on the base towards the end of the map time, everything becomes more serious, more frenetic, and more tense. It's going to be another way that DICE is using to control the tempo and the feeling and the fever pitch of the map. It's a design choice, and I think it's a really, really good one. And it's not.
I also heard that it's a kill streak. Sorry.
So when you say kill streak,
there are going to be kill streaks, like the Y bomber and the AT-AT would be similar to a Call of Duty kill streak.
Well, I read those as being, at least for the Y-wing bomber strike, being like a battle pickup.
It is.
Yeah, pickup.
So it's not based like some sniper. And in this case, actually in Battlefront, you can say Wookiee, and it actually means a Wookiee. Yeah. Normally, Wookiee means a sniper in Battlefield. So you're not going to have someone sitting in the corner of the map, maybe hitting someone 1 out of 20 times, who gets a lot of points per shot, then getting the Y bombers and ruining it and wasting it.
Yeah.
It's going to be something that spawns kind of like the battle pickups in Battlefield 4 in highly contested areas of where people, it's going to be a high risk, high reward to get to it. And if you get to it, you can do a lot of good for your team with it, but it's not going to be based upon, who can get the most points. It's really just, encouraging player movement across certain areas that they would want to create this kind of chaotic feel we've been talking about, this kind of frenzy of the match.
Right. So here's a prediction, and it's either right or it should be right. I want them to do this with AT-ATs. I totally get the on-rail thing, because I totally get it. What I want them to do, though, is when you spawn into one at the top of a match, and at the top of a match, you get to pick where it starts, so that it comes in along a line, and it does go through that line, but so that way the map doesn't play the exact same way every time. Like when the rebels are planning their defense, they're like, all right, U6, get in those snow speeders and go there specifically, because that's where it'll be. I am hoping that it will. Yeah, on rails is fine. I'm just hoping they give us the option to make certain tactical choices at the top of the map. If that's not the case, then the only reason it shouldn't be the case is because of technical limitations. That's the only excuse I'll accept for that. Other than that, I want it on rails. I think it makes for a more balanced, interesting, frenetic, tight, well-designed map. I mean, I think when we talk about really good multiplayer games, really good multiplayer maps, we talk about ones that are tight and controlled. The reason why Dust is considered to be the best multiplayer map of all time is because it's designed brilliantly. It's a figure 8. It forces conflict. It forces that conflict quickly. You never have to run around too long looking for someone to kill. And if there's any criticism of the Battlefield franchise, you mentioned this earlier, if there's any criticism, it's you're running around for too long looking for people. And I think it's a choice in that direction. Now, we're going to close it off with this, which is a little less serious. There are a bunch of PC people, and we're all PC people here. There are a bunch of PC people who are pissed off that the PC version of Battlefront will not feature split screen. Taylor, what's your reaction to that?
You have a PC. In the rare chance you have it in your living room, and that's a rare chance, you're not going to have someone else sitting right next to you being like, man, I wish there were split screen games for this computer that we're playing on. If you require and need split screen, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if you're counting past and current gen systems that you can use that give you almost unlimited split screen potential. You don't get to use right. Yeah, you don't. I think it's like having a sports car being like, oh geez, I wish I had a door that slid open and closed with beeping noises like that band that's kind of miniature sized, and gee willikers, this is such a frustration. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Okay, well, I was gonna give my own commentary on it and kick it to JJ, but let's be real, you covered up everything we needed to cover up with that. That is exactly how both of us feel. That wraps things up for us today on April the 21st of 2015. Thanks so much for making us part of your day. We'd really appreciate it. If you'd help us out, do us a favor, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Subscribe to us on Twitch and YouTube. And you can find us archival footage of this podcast on Twitch and on YouTube if you're watching live. For JJ Crass, Taylor Tate, I am James Huneycutt for Pixelated Geek Presents Pixel Plays. We're wishing you a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you soon.